Welcome to Non-Dual Meditation with Meister Eckhart. In this series of videos, we'll be looking at the papal condemnations of Meister Eckhart. There were approximately 25 of them, and they ironically reveal the perspective of the mystic, and that understanding of the mystic helps us to actually do the mental operation, the shifting in consciousness that brings us into the domain of the non-dual. We need to understand it, and through our investigation of Meister Eckhart's conceptualizations, it helps us to understand the non-dual perspective and the conceptualizations that follow the perception of the non-dual world, the non-dual existence. So today we are going to look at the fourth article and discuss it. We have talked about Article 1, 2, and 3. The fourth article reads, also, in every work, even in an evil, I repeat, in one evil event, both according to punishment and guilt, God's glory is revealed and shines forth in equal fashion. Well, the mystic is pointing to a comprehensive grasp of the Godhead, the scope of the non-dualists, of the mystic, is all-embracing. And we see that the mystic understands that God is not a good guy only. The Godhead is both the source of evil and good, of vice and virtue. An uncomfortable realization for those in the Western cultural traditions of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Not pervasively, but we recognize that most of us organize the idea of God in morally, and we have a lot of shoulds in our perspective. Well, we shouldn't be doing something bad. If we did something bad, it's our behavior and not the Godhead. And well, this is where the mystic parts with the orthodox conventional traditions. The mystic recognizes the domain of Godhead as a democratic, in that it gives itself completely to all parts. And Meister Eckhart later references that exactly, that the Godhead gives itself completely to the creation, to every aspect of the creation. We call this a holon, or a microcosm. In other words, every cell in our body is the entirety of the universe. And why? Because it does not exist without the entirety of the universe providing for it. So this is a very critical understanding that we must get past to even enter the domain and the conversation of mystical non-duality. We recognize actually that the Christian theology does actually prohibit a non-duality. Why? Because it's devotionally oriented. So, in other words, in the dual world, we idealize a perfect incarnation, and then we devote ourselves to it and gain the some of the properties of, and qualities of the God man, the incarnation in our life. Well, the non-dual perspective is the direct communion with God. It is indeed consistent with the Christ consciousness. It is indeed consistent with Buddha consciousness. It is non-dual awareness, and frankly, quite obvious. We are what is. And the denial that we are what is does generate a shadow because we've expelled that aspect of ourselves, and that tends then to haunt us or visit us in intrusive fashions. So we tend to deny the horrible side of our nature, and in the same time we deny the horrible side of the Godhead. Same event, and the mystic has swallowed the pill. The fourth article again reads, also in every work, even in evil, I repeat, in one evil, both according to punishment and guilt, God's glory is revealed and shines forth in equal fashion. So, well, we see this in the radical acceptance of existence, the acceptance of living and dying, of vice and virtue. The mystic comes into the current moment, realizing eternity in this very moment, realizing the singularity that harmonizes all existence into the single word of God, the universe. And it also informs the mental operation of shifting into the meditative placement of attention, which we are going to do right now. So we've discussed the fourth article, briefly recognizing the principle of radical acceptance that informs the mystic, informs the non-dualist. We'll begin with deep breathing, which influences our affective condition. It helps us to support our modulation into the meditative placement of attention. Let's remember that the meditative placement of attention is it is as it is, not it is as it should be. The dual world, it is as it should be, that life is happening to us, is completely acceptable. We live in paradox when we meditate because we shift to another perspective in the same field. We are what we are looking at. What is looking is what we're looking at. So that is the non-dual perspective, and it is, again, it is just happening. It's not happening to anyone. So let's begin with our expulsion through an H sound through the throat, and then we'll inhale through the nose. These are very large breaths. We use the deep breathing to change the affective state. A very helpful practice for non-dual meditation. Let's expel through the H sound through the throat. Breathing in through the nose. Fill up. Hold. And begin to work on your restlessness. Let it go. Come into sensory awareness, breathing in through the nose. Fill up completely. Hold. And all the air out. Breathe in. Hold. And now we modulate, we shift into the meditative placement of attention by coming to our senses, suspending judgment. Let's listen closely, wanting for nothing. Let God be God. Let nature be nature. Suspend preferences. Remain aware and alert. Even in evil, God's glory shines forth. Open the heart. Radically accepting life as it is. Without comment, without opinion. And let's debrief. We've modulated into the meditative placement of attention. After reading the instruction that is implicit in the fourth condemnation, the fourth article of evidence against Meister Eckhart, and it ironically reveals the marvelous perspective of the mystic who is indeed the incarnation of the all-embracing singular source of all being. The mystic is not in an inflated condition because infinite compassion follows communion. We recognize the Godhead to be a democracy rather than a monarchy. There is no subjugation, no subordination whatsoever. Even in evil, God's glory shines forth. Here too, let's understand that Meister Eckhart was dispatched by the Church to help those who were, slipping out of the faith, out of the orthodoxy, And of course, ironically, Meister Eckhart himself began to recognize expanded understanding of the mystery of Christ, if you will. I use that language respectful of the fact that not only Christians are listening to this lecture and practice. Very importantly, Meister Eckhart's interventions will always be acceptance. So when he speaks to the sinner, for example, he encourages the sinner to accept the fact that he or she has sinned. Why? Because it is simultaneous with the Godhead. It is the sin itself was a cosmic event, an event that was provided by the Godhead itself. And difficult pill for many of us in the Western culture to swallow. We like to think of God as being a good guy. And this actually, anthropocentric organization of the Godhead is understandable. However, we see in the general Christian tradition, Western tradition actually, a very irritable, if you will, or a potentially irritable Godhead. When you do the wrong thing, you're going to get slammed. Well, the mystic is infinitely forgiving. Why? Because the mystic understands the identity of the sinner as being one with the Godhead. This is the provision, and the mystic understands the dual nature, the polar nature of vice and virtue, of love and hate, of triumph and defeat. It's understood as a singularity and radically accepted. So I thank you for your participation in this meditation. We will proceed with Article 5 and 6 and move right through the Articles of Evidence against Meister Eckhart, allowing that teaching to steer our meditation. Tune in again, and thank you for your participation. Look forward to your comments. Stay well.